What if we could fuel our Martian dreams? Actually using stuff we find on Mars. We're going to be taking a deep dive today into a project that, well, it imagines just that it's called Marscapes, zellij fuel depots, and it comes from an AI designer, El Wazani 13257.
This is way more than just some, fuel depot design, though. This project really dives into what a Martian civilization might look like if it was totally self-sufficient, completely independent.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about actually making propellant, right, on Mars. But help me understand, why is that such a big deal?
Well, imagine trying to get fuel shipments from Earth to Mars all the time.
Yeah.
It'd be ridiculously expensive, and the logistics would be, well, a total nightmare, especially for any kind of long-term settlement on Mars. If you want any chance of independence, you have to produce fuel on Mars. And that opens up so many possibilities, for exploring further into the solar system.
Makes sense. So tell me more about this zellij design. What makes it so special?
So, El Wazani 13257 took inspiration from Moroccan zellij. That super intricate tile work, those mosaics, and created a modular system. It's imagine interlocking units that are easy to put together. You can expand them, keep them in good shape, all while surviving that crazy Martian environment.
So kind of like Martian Legos for building a fuel infrastructure. One thing that I found really cool was how much the project focuses on mapping out weak points, not just in the actual structure, but also in the flow of resources and what could go wrong.
That's where the whole idea of design topography comes in. Imagine a map, but multidimensional. That lets El Wazani 13257 basically see where stress points might pop up or where the design could fail. It's almost think about a heat map of the structure, and the colors show you the weak spots and where, say, a Martian dust storm could really do some damage.
So it's like predicting the future of the structure and then tweaking the design to make sure it can handle anything. Like a crystal ball for Martian architecture, right?
Exactly. And get this AI is using stuff like traditional Moroccan geometric patterns and even techniques from celestial navigation to make it all happen.
That's wild. What's the connection?
Well, basically, El Wazani 13257 takes all this complicated engineering data and turns it into something visual, almost like art. That way, it can see patterns and potential problems that normal methods would probably miss. It's all about seeing the things you normally can't see and connecting things that seem totally different to come up with totally new solutions.
Cool. So we've got this fuel depot design that can adapt and is super resilient. But the project goes even further, right? It imagines whole Martian towns popping up around these resource sites.
Yeah, and they're not like those giant cities you see in sci-fi. Think smaller, more interconnected communities. It's a whole new approach to how we think about cities, a complete shift.
Yeah, it's like hitting a reset button on how we plan cities and manage resources.
Right. On Mars, every single drop of water, every bit of energy, every piece of material is super valuable. The project really pushes us to rethink our relationship with resources and the environment.
So waste basically becomes something valuable. Everything needs to be part of a closed loop, no waste allowed.
You got it. It forces us to build sustainability into the core of everything, not just think about it later.
It's interesting how the project focuses on adapting the technology we have here on Earth to work on Mars. It's not about coming up with something completely new. It's more like tweaking what we have to survive in a totally different place.
Totally. It's about pushing the limits of what we know and how creative we can be to find solutions. Imagine hydroponic farms designed to work with Martian soil or energy systems that use solar and wind power, but in a totally Martian way.
It's like a giant lab, but on Mars. We get to test how adaptable humans really are.
Yeah, and it makes you wonder what kind of society would develop in a place like that. How would living on Mars change how humans act, their culture, even what it means to be human?
That's getting pretty deep. We're definitely going to explore those questions as we keep going with Marscapes. But for now, let's shift gears a bit and talk about what it might mean for humans to live on Mars permanently, like the long-term consequences.
So before we jump into all the cultural stuff, I want to circle back to design topography for a sec. You were saying it's like a crystal ball, for predicting what'll happen to a structure. Can you tell me a bit more about that?
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. You're not just mapping out the physical structure, but you're also simulating how it'll interact with the Martian environment over time. I mean, think about all the tiny meteoroids hitting it constantly, the crazy temperature swings, the dust that's just everywhere. All those things can really wear down a structure, in ways you might not even notice at first.
Right, and design topography helps you see all those stressors. It's almost like a time-lapse video that shows you where weak spots might show up over like decades.
Exactly. It's preventative maintenance, but on a massive scale. It means Elevazani 13257 can strengthen the areas that are most likely to get worn down, which helps make sure those fuel depots last a long time, and that's crucial for missions that last years and years.
It's super forward-thinking, especially when you think about how hard it would be to send a repair mission from Earth, right? And it's also really interesting how this AI gets inspiration from, like, traditional Moroccan geometric patterns and even celestial navigation.
Yeah.
That's not something you usually hear about when it comes to, like, cutting-edge space engineering.
No, it's like what? At first, those things seem totally unrelated.
Yep.
But when you think about it, there's a connection they both focus on, understanding complex relationships in space, all those patterns.
Exactly. Think about Moroccan zellij with all those intricate interlocking patterns. It's all about modularity and how to make a structure super strong. And celestial navigation. Well, that's all about understanding how the stars move and being able to picture those invisible paths across huge distances.
So Elazani 13257 is taking these ancient forms of knowledge and combining them with modern technology to create a whole new way of designing things.
It just goes to show you that innovation often comes from looking beyond the obvious, finding inspiration in unexpected places. Speaking of unexpected, let's switch gears for a minute and talk about those Martian towns that Marscapes envisions.
Yeah, these aren't your typical futuristic megacities, are they? They're imagined as smaller communities that are all interconnected.
Yeah.
It's a whole different way of thinking about urban planning, like turning everything upside down.
Yeah, exactly. The project really emphasizes how important it is to completely rethink how we use resources and how we interact with the environment. On Mars, every little bit of water, every watt of energy, every single scrap of material is precious.
So it's like waste doesn't exist anymore. Everything has to be recycled and reused.
Absolutely. Sustainability isn't just an option, it's the foundation of the entire system.
What I find really interesting is that they're focusing on taking technology we already have here on Earth and adapting it to work on Mars. They're not trying to invent everything from scratch. It's more like re-engineering what we already have so it can survive in a totally different world.
That's right. It's all about pushing the limits of what we already know and getting super creative to find solutions. Think about it, hydroponic farms that are specially designed to work with Martian soil, or energy systems that use solar and wind power, but in a Martian way.
It's like a giant laboratory, but on Mars, where we can see just how adaptable humans really are.
Right. And that leads to some pretty big questions. What kind of society would emerge from a place like that? How would living on Mars change how people behave, their culture, even how they understand what it means to be human?
Those are some deep questions. We're going to dive into those more as we keep exploring Marscapes. But for now, let's shift our focus to something else. The potential long-term consequences of having a permanent human presence on Mars. Okay, so we've talked about all the amazing technology and how society might change, but there's something else we need to think about. If humans are going to live on Mars permanently, it brings up some really big questions. Like, ethically, what do we need to consider when we're talking about potentially terraforming a whole other planet?
You're right. That's super important. We can't just assume that it's okay to change Mars to fit what we need. We have to think about how it could affect the Martian environment, even if it looks empty and lifeless to us.
It's a tough balance, right? We want to explore and expand, but we also have a responsibility to protect things. Do you think it's even possible to do both?
It's definitely a challenge, but I think projects like Marscapes are making us face these questions. They're pushing us to really think about what we're doing and what might happen in the long run.
And maybe, just maybe, by figuring out how to deal with these challenges on Mars, we can learn things that could help us here on Earth, too.
I think so. All the technology and sustainable practices we'd need to develop for a Martian colony, well, those could be really helpful for tackling environmental problems back home. It's all about broadening our perspective and realizing that sometimes the answers to our problems here might come from looking beyond our own planet.
So it's like this, cosmic feedback loop. Exploring Mars could actually help us save Earth. That's pretty mind-blowing.
It is, and it shows just how important it is to keep exploring, to push the limits of what's possible, and to keep asking those tough questions.
So where do we go from here? Marscapes is this incredible vision, but right now it's just an idea. What needs to happen to actually make it real?
Well, I think the first step is to keep doing research and developing the technology. We need to test things in environments that are like Mars, keep refining the designs, and build on the foundation that projects like this have already laid.
And we need to have a global conversation, right? talk about the ethical and social implications of actually having humans living on another planet.
Exactly. This is going to be a long journey, and we need to work together, be innovative, and be willing to challenge our own ideas about what's possible.
This has been an incredible deep dive into the world of Marscapes and what the future of human exploration might look like. Thank you so much to everyone for joining us on Exploring Futures. We hope this episode has got you thinking about all the amazing possibilities out there.
And if you enjoyed learning about Martian fuel depots and what it would take to be self-sufficient on Mars, we hope you'll share this with anyone else who's interested in the future of space travel. Until next time, keep looking up and keep exploring.